Rain hammered against the Metropolitan Museum's grand windows as Maya Rivera adjusted her black server's uniform. The crystal chandeliers above cast dancing shadows across marble floors, where New York's elite mingled in $1,000 gowns and tailored tuxedos. The air smelled of expensive perfume and fresh orchids, thick with the quiet power of old money. Maya balanced her champagne tray with practiced grace, moving through the crowd like a ghost. At 28, she'd learned to be invisible. Her dark hair was pulled back in an elegant bun, revealing the graceful line of her neck. Despite the simple uniform, something regal lingered in her posture, a dignity that no amount of hardship could erase. She'd held 2 master's degrees from Columbia once, international relations and economics. But that felt like another lifetime, before everything fell apart. Before her father's empire crumbled, before she had to disappear. "Champagne, please." The voice cut through the noise like broken glass. Maya turned to find herself staring into the coldest gray eyes she'd ever seen. Julian Blackstone stood before her, his presence making the spacious ballroom feel suffocating. At 35, he commanded a technology empire worth billions. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his jaw sharp enough to draw blood. Everything about him screamed calculated control. "Of course, sir." Maya offered him a glass from her tray. Their fingers brushed. For a heartbeat, something flickered in Julian's eyes. Surprise, maybe. Recognition of something he couldn't name. Most servers looked away when serving him. Maya met his gaze with quiet confidence. "You're new," he said. It sounded like an accusation. "Tonight, yes." Julian studied her face, noting the intelligence in her dark eyes, the way she held herself with pride despite her position. Something about this server unsettled him. She looked at him like an equal. As Maya turned to serve other guests, her heel caught on the carpet's edge. The tray tilted. Champagne splashed across the front of Julian's expensive suit. The ballroom froze. Conversations died. Heads turned. Maya's face flushed with mortification as she reached for napkins. "I'm so sorry, sir. Please let me help." But Julian stepped back sharply, his expression transforming into something arctic. The moment of connection vanished, replaced by cold disdain. "Incompetent," he said, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom like a whip crack. "This suit costs more than you probably make in a year. Perhaps you should stick to jobs that match your skill level." The cruelty in his words struck Maya like a physical blow. Around them, the crowd watched with fascinated horror, but she refused to flinch. "Sir, accidents happen," Maya said quietly, her dignity intact. "I offered to help remedy the situation." Julian's eyes narrowed. "Accidents happen when people are careless, when they don't know their place." He gestured dismissively. "Security should remove her before she causes more damage." What happened next surprised everyone. Maya straightened to her full height and looked him directly in the eye. "You're absolutely right, Mr. Blackstone. I don't know my place, because my place isn't serving champagne to people who mistake wealth for worth." The silence that followed was deafening. "You have no idea who you're speaking to," Julian said, his voice dangerously quiet. "I know exactly who you are." Maya's voice remained steady, but her hands trembled slightly as she set down the tray. "You're a man who built an empire on the backs of people you consider beneath you. A man so desperate to prove his worth that he tears others down to feel tall." Julian felt something shift in the room. The guests were watching, processing what they'd just witnessed. A server had just publicly challenged Julian Blackstone. "What's your name?" he demanded. Maya held his gaze for one more moment, letting him see the fire beneath her calm surface. Then she turned and walked toward the exit, her head held high. "Wait," Julian called out, taking a step forward, but Maya didn't stop. She pushed through the ballroom doors and disappeared into the rain-soaked night, leaving Julian standing in his ruined suit, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Unsettled. 3 years later, Julian stood in the same spot, watching rain streak down the windows of his office. His assistant knocked softly. "Mr. Blackstone, the new board member has arrived. Victoria Rivera." Julian turned, adjusting his tie. The Rivera name meant something in New York. Old money, powerful connections. He needed their support for his latest acquisition. The door opened, and Maya walked in, wearing a designer suit that cost more than his entire wardrobe, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes holding the same fire he remembered. "Hello, Julian," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "I believe we've met before." Julian's world tilted on its axis. The woman standing in his office bore little resemblance to the server from 3 years ago, yet he knew those eyes. They haunted him still, on nights when sleep wouldn't come. "Ms. Rivera," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Please, sit." Maya settled into the leather chair across from his desk, with the ease of someone born to boardrooms. She crossed her legs, her expression unreadable. The scent of her perfume reached him, something expensive and dangerous. "You don't remember me." It wasn't a question. Should I? Metropolitan Museum, charity gala, spilled champagne. Maya's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You called me incompetent, told security to remove me." Julian's jaw tightened. The memory flooded back with uncomfortable clarity. The server who'd looked at him like he was nothing, who'd walked away from him. That was you. Surprise. Maya leaned back, studying him like a specimen under glass. "Though I suppose I should thank you. That night taught me an important lesson about people like you." "People like me," Julian repeated, anger sparking in his chest. "Yes, people who believe money makes them gods, who crush others without a second thought." Maya's voice remained pleasant, but her eyes were hard as diamonds. "Tell me, Julian, do you even remember the names of the people you destroy?" He stood abruptly, walking to the window. The city sprawled below, oblivious to the war beginning in this office. "If you came here for an apology, you're wasting your time." "I didn't come for an apology." Maya rose, moving to stand beside him. "I came because my family owns 30% of the company you're trying to acquire. Without our vote, your deal dies." Julian turned to face her, close enough now to see the gold flecks in her dark eyes. "What do you want?" "Nothing you can give me," Maya said softly. "But I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want to see you succeed. I don't want to watch you build your empire higher while people like me, people who work 3 jobs just to survive, get crushed beneath your feet." "You're not that person anymore," Julian observed, gesturing to her designer suit. Something flickered across Maya's face. Pain, maybe. "No, I'm not. My father died 2 years ago, cancer. The medical bills destroyed us. I was working that gala to pay for his treatment." She paused, letting the words sink in. "He left me his company, the one your father helped destroy 30 years ago. Rivera Tech. Ring any bells?" Julian felt the floor drop out from under him. Rivera Tech. His father had mentioned it once, years ago. A competitor eliminated through questionable means. Thomas Blackstone had been ruthless in building his empire. "My father's sins aren't mine," Julian said, but the words felt hollow. "Aren't they? You learned from him. You became him." Maya's voice cracked slightly. "That night at the gala, you looked at me like I was dirt. You never asked why someone with my education was serving champagne. You never wondered what desperation looked like." "I didn't know. You didn't care to know." Maya turned away, but not before he saw the shine of unshed tears. "That's the difference between us, Julian. I've known what it's like to have nothing. You've only known how to take everything." The silence between them was charged with something dangerous. Julian found himself wanting to reach for her, to erase the hurt in her eyes. The impulse shocked him. "What if I could make it right?" he heard himself say. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You can't. Some things can't be fixed with money or power or late-night revelations in glass towers." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "The board votes in 3 days. I'll be there. And Julian, I'm going to destroy everything you've built, just like you destroy everything you touch." "Maya, wait." She paused, her hand on the door handle. "That night," Julian said quietly, "after you left, I looked for you. I sent people to find you. You disappeared. I had to." Maya's voice was barely above a whisper. "I had to become someone else. Someone strong enough to face you again. And now..." She looked back at him, and in her eyes he saw something that terrified him. Not hate, not anger, something worse. Understanding. "Now we're both monsters," Maya said. "The question is, which one of us is willing to burn first?" The door closed behind her with a soft click. Julian stood alone in his office, the taste of ashes in his mouth. He'd built his empire on the belief that feelings were weakness, that emotion was the enemy of success. But Maya Rivera had walked into his life twice now, and each time she'd left him feeling like a man drowning in deep water. He pulled out his phone, dialing his head of security. "I need everything on Victoria Maya Rivera. Everything. And I need it yesterday." As the city lights flickered below, Julian realized he was playing a game he didn't understand, against an opponent who knew all his weaknesses, because she'd once been one of them. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You want to know my secret, Julian? I learned from the best. I learned from you. See you at the board meeting. Try not to spill anything." Julian stared at the message, something cold settling in his chest. This wasn't over. This was just beginning. The board meeting room smelled of leather and old money. 20 faces turned as Maya entered, her red dress a declaration of war. Julian sat at the head of the table, his expression carved from stone. But when his eyes met hers, something flickered. Recognition, want, fear. She took the empty seat directly across from him. "Shall we begin?" Maya said sweetly. The presentation dragged on for an hour. Julian outlined his acquisition strategy with military precision. Numbers, projections, synergies. He was good, Maya had to admit. Brilliant, even. The other board members nodded along, already convinced. When he finished, silence filled the room. "Ms. Rivera," the chairman said. "Your thoughts?" Maya stood, smoothing her dress. "Mr. Blackstone's presentation is impressive, thorough, almost perfect." She walked to the window, letting them wait. "Except for one small problem. Every projection is based on data from Rivera Tech's R&D division, data he shouldn't have access to." Julian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Are you accusing Mr. Blackstone of corporate espionage?" a board member asked, shocked. "I'm stating a fact." Maya pulled out a folder, sliding copies across the table. These documents prove that someone inside Rivera Tech has been feeding information to Blackstone Industries for 6 months. "Someone with top-level clearance," the room erupted. Julian remained perfectly still, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. "This is absurd," he said calmly. "I've never seen those documents. Haven't you?" Maya turned to face him fully. "Tell me, Julian, how did you know about our quantum computing breakthrough?" "It wasn't public. We haven't filed patents yet. Only 5 people knew." "Industrial speculation," Julian replied smoothly. "Your company's hiring pattern suggested a major initiative." "Liar." The word hung in the air like poison. Maya moved closer, until she stood directly across from him, only the table between them. "One of those 5 people was my brother, Carlos Rivera, your college roommate, the man you've been paying $2 million a year to betray his own family." The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Julian's expression didn't change, but something died in his eyes. "Maya, don't!" Her voice cracked like a whip. "Don't you dare say my name like we're friends. Like you didn't plan this from the moment I walked into your office. A board member cleared his throat. "Mr. Blackstone, is this true?" Julian stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. His gaze never left Maya's. Yes. The admission sent shockwaves through the room. But Maya barely heard the chaos that followed. She was drowning in Julian's eyes, in the truth she saw there. "I contacted Carlos 6 months ago," Julian continued, his voice steady. "I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. Access to his family's secrets in exchange for financial security." He paused. "But that was before I knew who you really were." "Does that make it better?" Maya asked, her voice breaking. "Does that make you less of a monster?" "No." Julian moved around the table, ignoring the protests of the board members. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "Nothing makes it better, but you need to know something, Maya. I didn't plan this, not the way you think. Then how?" She hated how her voice trembled. Hated that. Even now. Even knowing what he'd done. Some part of her wanted to believe him. "I wanted to destroy you," Julian said quietly. "After that night at the gala, after you walked away from me, I became obsessed. I needed to understand who you were. What gave you the strength to face me when everyone else cowered?" His hand lifted, almost touching her face before falling away. "So I dug. I found Rivera Tech, found your brother, made my move. And when you discovered I was Victoria Rivera?" Julian's jaw clenched. "I should have stopped. Should have called it off. But by then Carlos was in too deep. And He stopped, something raw and painful crossing his face. "I told myself it was just business. That what I felt when I saw you again didn't matter. What you felt." Maya laughed bitterly. "You don't feel anything, Julian. You're ice and ambition and cruelty." I felt afraid. The admission seemed torn from him. For the first time in my life, I met someone who saw through me, who made me feel small and worthless with just a look. And I hated you for it, so I tried to destroy you. Maya stared at him, her breath coming fast. "You succeeded. Carlos and I haven't spoken in 2 years. When I found out what he'd done, it destroyed our family. Everything my father built, everything he died protecting, Carlos sold to you like it meant nothing. I know." Julian's voice was barely audible. "Maya, I know. And I'm sorry." "Sorry?" The word exploded from her. "Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't give me back my brother. Sorry doesn't undo the fact that you've spent 6 months systematically dismantling everything I love." The board members were standing now, uncertain, sensing something larger than business playing out before them. "The vote," the chairman said weakly. "We should postpone." "No," Maya said, never taking her eyes off Julian. "We vote now. All in favor of Julian Blackstone's acquisition. Silence. One by one. Hands remain down." "The motion fails," Maya said. "This meeting is adjourned." Julian didn't move as the room emptied. When they were alone, Maya finally let herself feel it. The betrayal, the loss, the terrible, impossible pull she still felt toward this man who'd destroyed her. "I have something else to tell you," Julian said. "What could possibly be left?" He pulled out his phone, turning it to face her. On the screen was a hospital bill. Enormous. Familiar. "Your father's medical bills," Julian said quietly. "I paid them. 2 years ago, anonymously." Maya's world tilted. "What?" "After that night at the gala. After I looked for you and couldn't find you. I kept digging. I found out about your father. About the cancer. About how you were working yourself to death trying to save him." Julian's voice was rough. "I couldn't stop thinking about what you'd said. About people who mistake wealth for worth. So I paid the bills. All of them. Why?" Maya whispered. "Because you were right about me," Julian said. "And some part of me wanted to prove you wrong." Maya felt tears burning her eyes. "You did this. All of this. The betrayal, the manipulation, the corporate espionage. But you also saved my father?" "Yes." "I don't understand you," Maya said, her voice breaking. "Are you a monster or a man?" Julian moved closer, his hand finally touching her face, thumb brushing away a tear. "I'm both. Just like you are. We're the same, Maya. Broken and brilliant and desperately trying to prove we're worth something." "Don't," Maya said, but she didn't pull away. "Don't make me feel this. Not after everything. I'm not making you feel anything you don't already feel." Julian's voice was rough with emotion. You hate me, I know. But you also understand me. And that's what terrifies you. Maya looked up at him, seeing her own pain reflected in his eyes. I can't forgive this. I'm not asking you to. Julian leaned closer, his breath warm against her skin. I'm just asking you to tell me the truth. Did any part of you hope I'd prove you wrong? That I'd be better than you expected? The truth caught in her throat. Because yes, God help her, yes. From the moment she'd walked into his office, some broken part of her had been hoping he'd be different, hoping he'd see her and choose something other than destruction. Yes, she whispered. Julian's lips were inches from hers. Then we're both fools. The kiss, when it came, tasted like ashes and regret and something impossibly sweet. Maya kissed him back, pouring 3 years of anger and longing and hate into it. When they broke apart, both were shaking. This changes nothing, Maya said. I know. I'm still going to destroy you. Julian smiled, and it was the saddest thing she'd ever seen. I know that too. Maya left without looking back, her heart fracturing with every step. Behind her, Julian stood in the empty boardroom, finally understanding what he'd lost. Everything that mattered. Maya's hands shook as she poured whiskey in her penthouse, watching the city lights blur through unshed tears. The kiss still burned on her lips, a brand she couldn't erase. Her phone buzzed. Carlos. She ignored it, just like she'd ignored his calls for 2 years. It buzzed again. And again, finally she answered. What? Maya, please, you have to listen to me. Her brother's voice was frantic. It's about Julian, about why I really did it. I don't care why you betrayed our family, Maya said coldly. It wasn't for money. Carlos's voice cracked. I have a daughter, Elena, she's 6. I never told anyone because her mother and I weren't together. But Maya, she needed a bone marrow transplant. No insurance would cover it. The experimental treatment cost $3 million. Julian found out. He offered to pay for everything if I gave him the information. Maya's glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble floor. What? He saved my daughter's life. Elena's alive because of him. I know what I did was wrong, but I couldn't let her die. I couldn't. The line went dead. Maya stood frozen, whiskey pooling around her feet like blood. Everything she thought she knew was unraveling. Julian hadn't just destroyed her family. He'd saved it too. Her phone rang again. Julian this time. Don't hang up, he said immediately. I need to see you, now, it's important. Why should I believe anything you say? Because someone's trying to kill me, and they're using your name to do it. 20 minutes later, Maya burst into Julian's office. He stood by the window, his shirt untucked, hair disheveled. For the first time since she'd known him, he looked afraid. Talk, Maya demanded. Julian handed her a folder. Inside were documents, emails, transfer records, all bearing her digital signature, all approving the sale of Rivera Tech assets to a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands. Someone's been setting you up, Julian said. These transactions started 3 weeks ago. By tomorrow, your board will believe you've been embezzling millions. You'll lose everything. Maya's blood ran cold. Who? My father. The words hung between them like a death sentence. Thomas Blackstone is still alive, Julian continued, his voice hollow. I thought he died 5 years ago. I was wrong. He's been in hiding, running shell corporations, playing the long game, and now he's coming for both of us. Why? Julian turned to face her, and Maya saw something broken in his eyes. Because I'm not ruthless enough. Because I paid your father's medical bills. Because I hesitated with Carlos. My father built his empire on blood and cruelty. He sees any mercy as weakness. He laughed bitterly. He's right. This can't be real, Maya whispered. It's real. And it gets worse. Julian pulled out another document. He has evidence. Real evidence that I've been bribing officials, manipulating stock prices, destroying competitors through illegal means. Things I actually did. His voice was raw. If this goes public, I go to prison. For a very long time. Good, Maya said, but there was no conviction in it. He's offering me a deal, Julian continued. I publicly destroy you, prove I'm still his son, and he makes the evidence disappear. If I refuse, he destroys both of us. The air left Maya's lungs. When do you have to decide? Tonight. He wants an answer by midnight. Julian moved closer, his eyes searching hers. Maya, I need to know something. If I do this, if I choose to save myself and destroy you, will you understand why? The question broke something in her. Are you seriously asking me that? Yes. Julian's voice was barely above a whisper. Because I need you to know that I'm considering it. I need you to see exactly what kind of man I am. I already know what kind of man you are, Maya said, tears streaming down her face. You're the man who humiliated me at a charity gala. The man who manipulated my brother. The man who destroys everything he touches. Yes. But you're also the man who saved my father. Who saved Elena. Who paid for treatments you'd never be thanked for. Maya's voice broke. You're both, Julian. Monster and savior. And I hate that I can't separate them. Julian reached for her, pulling her close. She should have pushed him away. Should have run. Instead, she collapsed against his chest, feeling his heart hammering against her ear. I don't want to hurt you, he said into her hair. But I will. Because that's what I do. That's all I know. Then do it, Maya whispered. Make your choice. Save yourself. I'm not worth your destruction. Julian pulled back, gripping her shoulders. Don't say that. Don't ever say that. Why not? It's true. I'm nobody, Julian. I'm the girl you spilled champagne on. I'm not worth your empire, your freedom, your life. You're everything, Julian said fiercely. You're the first person who ever made me feel human. Whoever made me want to be better. His hands trembled. Maya, I think I've been in love with you since that night at the gala. When you looked at me like I was nothing, because you were right, I was nothing. Without you, I'm still nothing. The confession shattered her. Please don't make this harder. I have to. Julian's voice was rough with emotion. Because I need you to know why I'm about to do this. He pulled out his phone, dialing. Maya heard the line connect. Father, Julian said, his voice steady. I have your answer. Maya held her breath. I'm not doing it. I won't destroy Maya. Whatever evidence you have, release it. Send me to prison. I don't care anymore. Thomas Blackstone's laugh crackled through the speaker, cold and mechanical. You're weak. Just like I always suspected. Maybe, Julian said. But I'm also free. For the first time in my life, I'm free. He ended the call. Maya stared at him, unable to process what just happened. You just threw away everything. No. Julian cupped her face in his hands. I finally chose the right thing. And if that means I lose everything, then so be it. Julian, you don't understand. Your father will destroy you. Prison, bankruptcy, public humiliation. Everything you've built will be gone, I know. Why? Maya's voice broke. Why would you do this for me? Julian smiled, and it was the most genuine expression she'd ever seen on his face. Because you're worth it. Because for once in my miserable life, I want to be the man you saw potential in, even if I never get to be that man for long. Maya kissed him then, desperate and fierce, pouring every complicated emotion into it. When they broke apart, both were crying. I can't let you do this, Maya said. It's already done. No. Maya pulled away, her mind racing. There's another way. My company, Rivera Tech. We have evidence too. Evidence of your father's crimes. 30 years of illegal activity, fraud, murder. She grabbed her phone. We trade. Your evidence for mine. Mutually assured destruction. He backs off, or we both bury him. Julian stared at her. Maya, if you release that evidence, it won't just destroy my father. It'll destroy his legacy, his companies. Thousands of jobs. Your own family's reputation because your father worked with him. I know. Maya's hands were steady now. But it's the only way to save you. And Julian, she looked at him with clear eyes. You're worth it too. For the first time in his life, Julian Blackstone felt tears on his face. You'd sacrifice everything for me? After what I've done? Yes, Maya's voice was strong. Because that's what love is. It's choosing someone even when it costs you everything. Even when they don't deserve it. Even when the world says you're a fool. Julian pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. No, Maya agreed. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is what we choose to be from this moment forward. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Clever girl. But there's one thing you haven't considered. I'm already dead. You can't destroy a ghost. Midnight. The old Blackstone factory. Come alone, both of you, or I release everything to the press. No more games, no more chances. Just an ending. Maya showed Julian the message. He read it, his jaw tightening. It's a trap, he said. Of course it is. Maya checked her watch. We have 2 hours. We don't have to go. We can run. Leave the country, start over somewhere else. Maya looked at him, seeing the hope and fear warring in his eyes. Is that what you want, to run? Julian was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, I'm done running. Whatever happens tonight, we face it together. Maya took his hand, their fingers interlocking. Together. As they walked toward the elevator, toward whatever ending awaited them, neither noticed the figure watching from across the street. Thomas Blackstone smiled, pressing send on his phone. One final move. One final lesson for his weak son. Some people can't be saved. Some people can only be destroyed. The old Blackstone factory loomed against the midnight sky, a skeleton of rusted steel and broken windows. Rain fell in sheets, turning the ground to mud. Maya and Julian stood at the entrance, hands still intertwined. Last chance to turn back, Julian said quietly. Maya squeezed his hand. Not a chance. They stepped inside. The interior was a cathedral of decay. Moonlight streamed through holes in the roof, illuminating empty machinery and scattered debris. In the center of the space, a single spotlight blazed, and beneath it stood Thomas Blackstone. He was 70, but age had only sharpened him. Silver hair, cold eyes, a smile that held no warmth. He looked at his son with something like disappointment. Julian. Still choosing weakness, I see. Hello, Father. Julian's voice was steady. Surprised you remember what I look like. Don't be dramatic. Thomas turned his attention to Maya. And you must be the infamous Ms. Rivera. You look like your father. He was weak too. Made it easy to destroy him. Maya felt Julian tense beside her, but she kept her voice calm. What do you want? Want? Thomas laughed. I don't want anything, my dear. I'm already getting it. In approximately 30 seconds, every major news outlet in the country will receive a package. Evidence of Julian's crimes. Evidence of your embezzlement. By morning, you'll both be ruined. We have evidence too, Maya said. 30 years of your crimes. We'll release it. No, you won't. Thomas pulled out a phone, turning it to face them. On the screen was a video feed. Carlos and a little girl, bound and gagged in what looked like a warehouse. Your brother and his daughter. Sweet child. It would be a shame if something happened to her. Maya's blood turned to ice. You monster. I prefer pragmatist. Thomas smiled. Here's how this works. Julian publicly confesses to everything, takes full responsibility, goes to prison. Ms. Rivera, you quietly disappear. Change your name, leave the country, vanish. Do this, and your family lives. Refuse, and I kill them both. Then I release the evidence anyway, and you still lose everything. Julian stepped forward, fury radiating from him. This is between us. Leave them out of it. But that wouldn't teach you the lesson you need to learn, son. Thomas's voice turned cold. Love makes you weak. Compassion makes you vulnerable. I tried to raise you properly, but your mother poisoned you with her softness. This is my final gift to you. I'm going to show you what weakness costs. You're insane, Julian said. I'm practical. Thomas checked his watch. You have 2 minutes to decide. After that, the little girl dies first. I want you to watch, Julian. I want you to understand what mercy really means. Maya felt the world closing in. Elena. Sweet, innocent Elena who'd done nothing wrong, who'd been saved once already, only to be used as a pawn now. She looked at Julian, saw the same desperate calculation in his eyes. I'll do it, Julian said suddenly. I'll confess to everything. Turn myself in. Just let them go. No, Maya said fiercely. Julian, you can't. I have to. He turned to face her, his hands framing her face. Maya, I've spent my whole life being the man he made me. Cold, ruthless, cruel. If I die that way, then he wins. But if I do this, if I choose to save someone instead of destroying them, then maybe I was worth something after all. You're worth everything, Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face. Julian kissed her, soft and desperate and final. I love you. I need you to know that. In all my miserable life, you were the only thing that mattered. Julian, please. Take care of your brother. Of Elena, promise me. Maya's voice broke. I promise. Julian turned to his father, his expression calm. I'll do it. Give me the phone. I'll make the confession right now. Just release them first. Thomas studied his son for a long moment. Then he laughed. No, see, Julian, that's your problem. You still think there's a way out. You still think being good matters. Let me show you how wrong you are. He pressed a button on his phone. The video feed of Carlos and Elena disappeared, replaced by a single word, recorded. There is no warehouse, Thomas said calmly. There is no threat. They're safe at home. This was all a test. And you failed. Julian staggered back as if struck. What? I needed to know if my son was truly lost, Thomas continued. If you'd been willing to let them die, to make the hard choice, I would have welcomed you back, made you my heir again. But you chose weakness. You chose her. He gestured dismissively at Maya. So now you get nothing. The evidence is still being released. You're still going to prison. But now you'll know it was all for nothing. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Maya started to laugh. It started soft, then grew, echoing through the empty factory. Both men stared at her. Something funny, my dear? Thomas asked, his smile fading. Maya pulled out her phone. Actually, yes. See, while you were monologuing about weakness and lessons, I was recording everything. Your confession, your threats, your admission that you faked the kidnapping. She held up the phone, the red recording light blinking. Every word. And I wasn't alone. The shadows around the factory suddenly illuminated. Dozens of police officers emerged, weapons drawn. At their head was a woman in an FBI jacket. Thomas Blackstone, she said. You're under arrest. Thomas's face went white, then red. This isn't possible. How? Carlos, Maya said simply. When you contacted him about your fake kidnapping, he went to the FBI. They've been building a case against you for months. Tonight was just the final piece. Julian stared at Maya, something like awe in his eyes. You knew it was a trap. I suspected. Maya moved to his side as the police surrounded Thomas. But I had to be sure. And I had to make sure you were worth saving. And am I? Julian's voice was barely audible. Maya looked at him. This broken, brilliant man who'd chosen love over power, mercy over strength. Yes, God help me, yes. Thomas Blackstone was dragged away, screaming threats and promises of revenge. But his voice faded, swallowed by the rain and the night. When they were alone, Julian pulled Maya close. What happens now? Now? Maya considered. Now we deal with the fallout. Your crimes, my complications, all the damage we've done to each other and ourselves. That sounds terrible. It probably will be. Maya smiled. But Julian, I think we're done running from who we are. Monster or savior, weak or strong, it doesn't matter. We're just two people trying to be better than we were yesterday. Will that be enough? Maya kissed him, soft and sure. I don't know, but it's a start. 6 months later, Julian stood in a courtroom as the judge read his sentence. Community service, restitution, probation. No prison time, thanks to his cooperation with the FBI and the evidence he'd provided against his father's entire criminal network. Maya sat in the gallery, watching him. When their eyes met, she smiled. After the hearing, they walked out into bright sunshine. The press swarmed, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions. But Julian ignored them all. He took Maya's hand, and they walked through the chaos together. I got a job, Julian said as they reached his car. Teaching business ethics at Columbia. Ironic, right? Maya laughed. Incredibly. I hear they're paying you in karma and good intentions. It's a living. Julian opened her door, then paused. Maya, I know I don't deserve to ask this, but will you give me a chance? A real chance to prove I can be the man you believed I could be. Maya looked at him. This man who'd destroyed her and saved her, who'd been her enemy and her savior. Julian, I've been giving you chances since the moment I spilled champagne on your suit. I'm not stopping now. He kissed her then, in front of the cameras and the crowd, in front of the whole world. And for the first time in his life, Julian Blackstone didn't care what anyone thought, because he'd finally found something worth more than Power, worth more than control, worth more than being right. He'd found redemption in the eyes of the woman who'd once been invisible to him. As they drove away, Maya's phone buzzed. A message from Carlos. Elena wants to know if Uncle Julian can come to her birthday party. She says anyone who saved Mommy Maya must be pretty cool. Maya showed Julian the message. He read it, something soft crossing his face. What do you think? He asked. Maya took his hand. I think we've both been given a second chance. Let's not waste it. They drove into the sunset. Two broken people learning to be whole. Two monsters discovering their humanity. Two enemies who'd become something else entirely. Not perfect, not fixed, but together. And sometimes, that's enough. The end.